we gotta. We write awesome stuff. I'm gonna write awesome stuff. You guys are gonna watch. So, last minute, I came up with the idea for a Briticizer. So imagine like a synthesizer. What it's going to do is it's going to take American English and translate it into proper English. So yes, this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to kind of touch on like, we're going to pretend to work with natural language processing, but really we're just going to be messing around with strings and manipulating them in awesome ways. So yes, it won't make me sound better or smarter, but when you're reading, it will.
Could you say what a kata is?
Yes. So Kata is sort of a small fun project that exercises your abilities in development. A common use case with this, especially the way that we format them in particular, is to follow test-driven development. So, or BDD, whichever you prefer. Same thing. So, the thing with this that I'm going to be doing is writing a test and then making it pass. And I'm going to continue to rinse and repeat until we have a working software product. Then I'm going to open source it, release it into the interwebs, and no, probably not going to do either of those. But that's the goal. So without further ado, we're going to get started. I'm going to bundle a gem, and actually, I'm going to double check on this because I like to have it set up RSpec for me. You don't know what that is? Okay. Bundle help gem. Type that into this. And we are going to say, I want to bundle a gem called Briticizer with a C, with a S, not a Z.
Yeah.
That's key spelling, okay? All right, so I want a binary, so I pass in the -b flag, and that's going to give me a fancy Briticizer command. And I want to test with RSpec, so I'm going to add -t space RSpec. And then I'm going to edit my gem spec with -t. Okay, we'll close that out, and we're going to hit enter. So what it just did in the background, well, very quickly, was generate a base skeleton for gem. What this is going to let me do is, imagine when you're installing Rails, for example, Rails is a gem. We're making Briticizer into a gem so that we can all include it into our software projects and convert our manual pages and documentation into proper English. So first things first, this really bothers me. I hate the fact that I have double quotes for everything and there's no interpolation. So I'm just going to fix that.
I agree.
I'm very particular. Exactly. So this is going to be a great initial commit. So, and also, now that I think about it, I don't know about this. This needs to be licensed. I'm actually very curious if this will work.
Not going to work.
All right. It will work. It will work.
What are you doing right here?
So what I'm doing is I'm redefining gem. In my gem spec, I decided Ruby gems isn't good enough, so I'm going to monkey patch it. So that I can call my license with the proper spelling.
Right.
Anyway, moving on. I've finished murdering my gem spec, and we now have a base structure. Like so. That's a lot of computers. Anyway, since we have a very nice structure, and why do I have a? Oh,
Just inside of your room shit.
that's interesting. Nice one, Finder. Oh, oopsie. Oh, okay. Nice one, T-Mux. So I'm going to move this Briticizer out of my company project. I don't want to commit that to work.
Hey, you guys are going global, aren't you?
What's that? Where did I put it? Oh, okay. Move that into my code directory. All right, so this is it. I have a bin file, a gem spec, a gem file, which just includes all my dependencies for my gem spec, lib directory, where we're going to put all of our code, license spelled incorrectly, and a rig file, readme, and spec directory. That's where all of our tests are going to live for the remainder of this stand-up. All right, so I am just about satisfied, and I'm going to do an initial commit. So I'm going to add everything, and I'm going to delete or leave the cache version of the license. All right, so using git status, we see all the files that were created are going to be committed. And we're going to give it the most descriptive commit message ever. Initial commit. All right.
Pretty sure there are rules about not using that initial first.
All right, so I'm going to open up my specs, like my spec helper, and yeah, that's very nice. I'll leave it like that. So in my spec directory, I have this Briticizer spec, and what bundle gem is going to give me right off the bat is the name of my gem as a module. So if we look at our lib directory, I have a file called Briticizer.rb. Oopsie. Single quotes. Your code goes here, and that's where our code will be until we refactor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new pane in Tmux, and this will just be a console. That's where I'm going to run rake spec, or just rake for short. So right now, oh, haha, you can't call alias method. Forgot about that. We're going to fix that. So it's a private method. Anyway, let's try again. Oh, that's
Spec isn't necessarily the class you think it is.
Yeah, you alias the wrong method.
I did?
You should just do that with license equals.
Just show us how you fix it.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's what I wanted.
Oh.
There you go.
Yeah, license equals, because yes, I'm writing an attribute. All right, cool.
There we go.
So we can run the test suite now. It doesn't pass though, and that's because by default it shouldn't pass because we haven't put any code. So what I'm going to do is just get rid of all this because it's redundant, and we're going to start off with just how I imagine interacting with it. So the way I imagine it is I would have a method called translate, and it's going to accept a string, and then that's all for starters. So what I'm going to do is just call describe class dot translate bananas. So switching back, I'm going to run rake, and we see that translate is undefined method for Briticizer module. That's because there's no code in there, silly. Why don't you tell me that? So we're going to define a method, and this is going to be accessed as a class method, not an instance method, because we're using a module. That's what's going to actually, yeah. Let's just try that. And we're going to be a text. And just leave it at that. If I go back, it passes. We're done. It's worse. Ship it. So what I want to do is say, in a context under the specific situation of when an Americanized string is supplied, it returns the Briticized string, not the hey. So in this case, we're going to set our first expectation, which is I expect that when I call Briticizer dot translate paradise, it's going to translate it into paradise. I'm going to save this and switch back to my console and run rake again. In this case, we got nil because our method doesn't have any code in it. So, which by the way, I don't actually write tests so slow. So we're gonna move a bit faster after this. But really, let's just pretend I'm this lazy at work. I'm just like, okay, paralyzed. Really, save it, and then it's like, oh look. Oh, see, right there, it worked. My test suite covers that. All right, so we've got some functionality. When I pass anything into my translate method, it returns paralyzed. We're gonna make this a little more advanced, and I think what really needs to happen is we need to split this out, because when I start adding in multiple words, it's going to get really complicated really fast. So I think for now, I'm going to focus on just translating one word at a time, and then wrap it up with translating full sentences, punctuation, and so on. So what I want is rules. So what I'm going to do is make a new spec, and it's going to be for an imaginarily awesome thing. All right, rule spec. So I'm going to include my spec helper. My syntax wasn't messed up. And we're going to describe a new class. And this class is going to be called Briticizer rule. And what I want it to do is to pretty much let me define all of the rules and translations so that things will be a bit more maintainable when we start getting more complex things. So there's several different versions of spelling. There's Greek derivatives and Latin derivatives for starters, which just generally dictate the rules of spelling between American English and British English, because we love to make things fun for the rest of the world, like imperial measurements. So it has a method called initialize, and it's going to yield itself, because that's how I want to interact with it.
Are you sure you're happy with that method?
Huh?
Are you sure you're happy?
No. We're getting into minute programming. It'll do something. All right.
No. Don't go down my path.
You're describing new, right? Yeah.
If I allocate an object, I can call initialize.
Don't do that.
Okay. So I expect that our rule class, describe class, is going to yield. No. You know what? I haven't tested this one yet. Okay, I need it.
All right. You need to make a subject, give it a name, and then expect a call on describe class.view to yield the procedure.
Okay. All right. So say rule. Wait, are you saying that I should be
What you want to
stubbing
do,
that?
no, you want to verify that it's yielded, right? That's all you want to do?
Yeah.
All right, so what you want to do is do expect, and then in braces, not parentheses,
Ah.
you do, it takes a parameter B, or whatever you want to call it, so take a parameter right there.
Take out parameter bar.
Right, pipe B pipe,
Oh, okay.
all right, and then do a new one of your rules,
Okay.
and send it ampersand B. All right, and then at the end there, you want to say to yield control. There you go.
Okay. That's very helpful. See that? Social engineering. That's what this was all about. Get somebody else to write it for me. All right, so I'm going to see what that does, and we get uninitialized constant for the size of rule. So now we're going to define that class. It's going to be a module. And it's going to have a class rule. When we go back to run rate, now we get something else, an initialized constant Briticizer rule. And that's because we're not including it. So in Briticizer.rb, we're going to require. Go back to console and test it, and it does not yield. So if I go back to my rule, I'm going to define initialize, and we're going to yield self. Excellent. We're passing now. So what this is going to have is an interface for defining patterns, specifying various words that we want to ignore. For example, prize, like IZE endings turn into ISE endings, but prize, the noun, is something that is the same spelling regardless of where you are. So I imagine that I would have an interface, something along the lines of a pattern. And the pattern should accept a regular expression. And this regular expression is going to be something along the lines of, say, rule pattern.
Sorry.
It's all good. Actually, imagine digits. Just one. Yes. And actually, you know what? Say non-digits. This pattern is going to match anything that is not a digit using this regular expression. You don't know what it does with this regular expression. Oh, okay. Actually, yeah, you're correct. You're entirely correct. All right, so when I specify this pattern, actually, I wanted to accept a regular expression and a block, which means that yeah, that would be B. Let's do that. All right, so rule pattern, non-digits, and block. Actually, I just want to test that it accepts it. Okay, so going back, we're going to break, and we're going to get undefined local variable method because I didn't actually set up my subject. My subject is a new rule. So that's going to be a new Briticizer. If I go back, get our next error, which is going to be no block given for you. No block given.
You get a new without giving a block.
Ah, okay. Because it
Would you
requires.
just specify it needs to happen?
Yes. I guess in the case of tests. Yeah, now that's something that's code smell.
You could use block given in your
Yeah, but I should test that first. So let me just comment this out real quick. And we'll just say it does not require a block. And that's just going to be the I'm going to expect this not to raise an error. Alright, so with our new test, expected no exception, got a local jump error, and we're going to say block is given, then yield yourself, otherwise do nothing. And I have syntax error.
syntax error in the last line.
Oh. Thinking ahead of myself. You're just so excited. Alright, so we have our initialize method. It doesn't require a block because that's going to get really verbose and dirty if we start testing all these methods. But it allows a block and yields itself, so that tests that. Yes, if I pass a block when I initialize, I can still call all of these methods. So back to this pattern method. This pattern method is going to accept a regular expression and a block. What I want it to do is just let me define all my rules and say, if you get this pattern for a word, change it to this. And what these blocks will be supplied is match for that regular expression. So, moving on, we get a method, undefined method pattern. So we're going to define it, and it's going to accept a regular expression, and it's going to give us a block. Okay, that passes. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to add supplied patterns and what do we call this? I like to call it callback, because that is a no land. It's going to add the patterns and callbacks to their, let's see, sort of in a hash. And when I call rule.pattern, let me get something else that's a non-regex, so I can reference it. Something, it's going to give me something else. I expect that rule patterns, will change rule pattern. All right. I'll break again, undefined method patterns, because we don't have it. So we're going to create an access. Patterns. And name. Which is just going to be a hash. Red safety what? Alright, so we're going to add the regular expression and we're going to save the block. So there we go. That was not simple. I'm 29. My spec. Oh.
What was he at?
Oh, okay. That's not here. Right. Rule patterns. Otherwise, our spec won't know what to do with that. Alright. Should just know our spec. Alright, so we're testing that it changes it. I'm not quite satisfied with that. So I'm going to go against my better judgment so that we can go a little bit faster and speed stuff. And we're just going to test that rule patterns something that call is going to return something else. So it's evaluating. Great. It works. Adding tests that pass. Code coverage. Every time I say something, this man shakes his head. It's approval.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, so
Silent headline.
so what we're doing is we are now storing patterns into a hash so that we can reference them later. So ideally what we're going to do is we're going to start building out a collection of rules, and they're going to be stored somewhere. Or we can reference them later. I do?
Yeah.
That time went so fast. Man. Was so optimistic, and then the timer had to crush my hopes and dreams. Alright. So how's everybody's night?
It would be good if you could find some nice point to wrap up soon. And then
Yeah.
Good job.
Segue. So speaking of patterns.
I want a t-shirt that's
All right.
question and answer time now.
Yes. Question and answers.
And comments.
Yes.
Comments.
Comments especially.
I have a comment.
Yes.
Back in your original spec, you had a context that didn't set up didn't actually set up anything. Like, you didn't set up what claim it was set up.
Oh. Context.
Briticizer.
The Briticizer spec.
Oh, yeah. I switched focuses and didn't get
You
stashed.
said when an Americanized string is supplied, but that context does not supply an Americanized string.
Yes. So I suppose ideally what I'd want to do is set up a left block and have a string as the argument that's passed in each time, and be testing my subject not as Briticizer translate, but actually calling that method with what I left in my left block.
Describe.
Anything?
I learned a lot.
Yeah, that's it.
I think you ended up with something that is sort of part intro to creating a gem and part intro to something that could have been an amusing product.
Yes.
Yeah, I like to see you creating a gem. That was pretty cool. We don't get to see that very often.
And I taught grammar at the same time.
And through an alias method, it's good.
So just to throw it out there, for people who found the creating the gem part interesting, there is a topic on the topics app on intro to creating a gem in Ruby. If you vote it up, we'll get it presented. What's that?
Just give it if you want to give it.
Oh, Jason.
I found it especially apropos that, given what the topic was, that you correctly used expect not to instead of expect to not.
Oh, that bothers me so much. Is anybody else bothered by like double quotes?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for changing that.
Yes. I was being joking. I was being joking that it was pedantic, but it was the right thing to do. The throwing around of double quotes without interpolation in Ruby.
And actually, on a related note, I use Sublime, not them like you're doing, but if anyone can tell me how with the various Ruby macros I get, that it will stop giving me double quotes, like is that a setting I can turn off somewhere?
Yeah.
It's just a snippet to edit.
Because I never use any of those because they give me the bad wrong.
Oh, that's a setting. Yeah, you can turn those off.
No, I
Is
can
there a
turn them
setting?
off, but I want them to operate correctly. I want to use them and have them operate correctly.
Oh, edit the bundle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Edit the snippet.
You want to get set up?
The RSpec